recent years, a small group of powerful technology platforms have tightened their grip over commerce and communications in America. They've used this power to engage in unscrupulous business practices while simultaneously waging war on free enterprise and free expression. At the urging of the radical left, these platforms have become intolerant of diverse political views and abusive toward their own users, and I think we could say as abusive as you could possibly be in some cases, right, Josh? You've seen that? For example, Twitter routinely restricts posts expressing conservative views, even from a president of the United States, while at the same time it allows Iran's supreme leader to freely spew vile anti-Semitic hate and even death threats.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we take a look at the latest new Q posts, and they expose the two warring factions that are trying to retain power in this country are basically glorified crime families, and we're going to look at who is behind them. And we're also going to talk about a bunch of other breaking news that the fake news will never talk about, including how they're trying to portray the Q movement in the fake news media. We're going to look at all of that and a whole lot more, so stick around and check it out. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. You guys know the drill. Come here, hit that subscribe button. Also, hit that like button if you guys like this content. And stick around at the end. We do our segment, God's Grace is Greater. And today we're going to talk about a psalm, a very powerful psalm that talks about confidence in the Lord. And I think we need to remind ourselves that no matter what happens, God will be there for us in our time of need. And I think that's what that psalm gets into. And we'll talk about that a little bit later at the end of the show. But today we're going to get into the latest Q posts, and we got a bunch to go through here, so we're going to jump right into them. And we'll start here. We left off at 47:41, and we're picking up at 47:42, and we're going to start here. So John Solomon, who has been, one of the top reporters who's been breaking story after story, has broken this story today, talking about a Senate report slamming Biden for conflicts of interest, flagging possible criminal activity, and a GOP-led investigation citing evidence of Burisma bribe and suspicious foreign money transfers and sex trafficking. So look, here's the scoop on this, right? And I've had, you wouldn't even believe the conversations I've had today with people who you'll probably be hearing from in the future, either on my channel or I'll be doing some stuff with their organizations. But here's the long and short of it. It doesn't look like Biden's going to end up being the nominee. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's too late. They don't have enough time. But here's what I think the reasoning behind that is. If you see him lately, he's been coughing a lot more. And, I was having a conversation with somebody who was like pointing out the fact that, with this story breaking and the fact that you have the Senate leading an actual investigation into Hunter Biden and his whole criminal family organization that they had, whether it was Burisma or the China deal or whatever, that it's just, there's no way. And plus, he can't debate President Trump. And so I think the plan may be for him to drop out suddenly and them to probably bring in somebody like Michelle Obama. Now, I could be wrong. They may just go ahead with him because there's different contingencies. Obviously they have a plan for everything, just like President Trump does. They have different contingency plans that they probably will put into effect. But the long and short of this story is that this is just another example of why these people can't be allowed to take power again in this country. I mean, listen to this. They're investigating the Burisma bribes that have been uncovered in Ukraine now. You have whistleblowers coming forward and exposing that. Foreign money transfers and sex trafficking. Do you want these people running this country? I mean, that's really the question you have to ask yourself. And I know you guys, probably none of you out there who's watching this do, but ultimately, as a country, we have to come together because there's major problems that may be coming down the pipeline. And we hope and pray that President Trump and the military and the rest have all their contingencies in line and that we're going to be able to get through it and save this republic. But I keep saying it, and I can't stress this enough. These people will destroy this country before they face accountability for their crimes. And this is like that guest I had on the other day, the U.S. Air Force intelligence asset who came forward, used to work for the Inspector General of the Air Force, was talking about Chris. He was saying that, we need to be very, very careful now and be, always ever watchful And if you see something, say something. Don't be afraid to call your local police or call whoever you feel that you want to report something to if it doesn't look right or seem right, because you really think they're going to let this go and that we're not going to have a major new distraction? Because, obviously the C-19 is just fizzled out, right? So they can't use that to fill the airwaves anymore. And now when these stories come out, it's like, how much can the media blatantly ignore it before it becomes too obvious, even for them? But you read through this story, year-long, and this is from John Solomon, year-long Senate investigation concluded Wednesday that Hunter Biden's effort to cash in on foreign business deals during his father's vice presidency raised alarm among U.S. government officials who perceived an ethical conflict of interest and flagged concerns about possible criminal activity ranging from bribery to sex trafficking. Yeah, this is insane. The long-awaited joint report by GOP-led Senate Homeland and Governmental Affairs and Senate Finance Committees delivered several blockbuster revelations less than 2 months before the election day, suggesting Obama administration officials ignored clear warning signs of ethical conflicts and possible extortion. Extortion risks involving Joe Biden's family. So I think that China got the goods on everyone, and they sold them the goods, really. They sold themselves out, it seems, to China. And here we are, right? But it says the most explosive revelation was the U.S. Treasury Department flagged payments collected overseas by Hunter Biden and business partner Devon Archer for possible illicit activities. And I reported on this years ago, right? The suspicious deals with Devon Archer, you look at his past, and Hunter Biden, and you know who's not in any of these reports, but who was a partner in their firm, which was called Rosemont Seneca Partners? A guy named Christopher Hines. And guess who he is? He's the stepson of, you guessed it, John Kerry, and also one of the family members, heirs to the Heinz ketchup fortune. Heinz and ketchup, that major company that's in every grocery store in the country. Yeah, so there's a bigger story here, and who knows? Maybe Chris made a deal and got out of it, but he was definitely in their company. He was on the board, or he was a joint partner with Devon Archer and Hunter Biden. So you have John Kerry, his stepson. You have Hunter Biden, or you have Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, his son, and this guy Devon Archer is the connection, right? So you can read through this if you want. It's got some good information in there. Obviously, John Solomon's always doing solid reporting, but that's going to be big. Q says political leaders plus family follow with possible ties to sex trafficking. Attacks barrage by media signify what? Sex trafficking, safeguarding women and children, topics that unite all political factions against a common enemy, faith in humanity. Those you are taught to trust the most. Q. And I did want to mention also in this story about the sex trafficking part. I wanted to read that part as well. But here it says that the report citing U.S. government records also raised concerns about possible ties to sex and human trafficking rings. Quote, Hunter Biden paid non-resident women who are nationals of Russia or other Eastern European countries and who appear to be linked to an Eastern European prostitution and or human trafficking ring, the report said. So there you go, right? I would say this is not good for the Biden campaign. I would say it's very likely that they do something, that something happens, whether it's done by them or not, to change the narrative and to keep this out of the news, right? Because the fake news isn't going to report this. They are liars. They have betrayed this country. They've betrayed you and me. They've sold us out with the big tech corporate liars and the corrupt politicians. They've sold us all out to the Chinese and anyone else who wants a piece of this country as it's destroyed from within by infiltration. So going to the next Q post, 4743 here, crimes against humanity, Q. Yeah, we know what they did. We've uncovered it. Now, this is interesting. The Justice Department coming out and making these unveils these proposed Section 230 legislation on behalf of the Trump administration. Now, today, it's a great step in the right direction. And as you saw in the beginning, I played a clip from the press conference or the speaking event where President Trump and Attorney General William Barr talked about this. And the reality is this. They know the purge is coming, and they see the writings on the wall that the big tech tyrants have decided to try to game this election by using their massive platforms to give in-kind donations to the Democrats and to silence and suppress the opposition party, their political opposition, so that they can't effectively communicate or coordinate as a political group. I mean, it is, and it's so dastardly, it's so evil. It is beyond anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. And, you know, it's something that is going to be written about in the history books, about the treason and betrayal outright that these people have been involved in, especially in big tech. And to me, that's something you have to be aware of. But I'll read a little bit. It says, quote, for too long, Section 230 has provided a shield for online platforms to operate with impunity, said Attorney General William Barr. Quote, ensuring that the internet is safe, but also vibrant, open, and competitive environment is vitally important to America. We therefore urge Congress to make these necessary reforms to Section 230 and begin to hold online platforms accountable, both when they unlawfully censor speech and when they knowingly facilitate criminal activity online. The department's proposal is an important step in reforming Section 230 to further its original goal, providing liability protection to encourage good behavior online. The proposal makes clear that when interactive computer services willfully distribute illegal material, moderate content in bad faith, Section 230 should not shield them from the consequences of their actions, and so on. So the part here where it talks about promoting transparency and open discourse is the one that would pertain to free speech. And the illicit activity is the one that pertains to, you know, facilitating sex trafficking and the spreading of other illicit forms of just depravity and evil. But obviously, you know, I'll read this section here. First, the draft legislation has a series of reforms to promote transparency and open discourse and ensure that platforms are fair to the public when removing lawful speech from their services. The current interpretations of Section 230 have enabled online platforms to hide behind the immunity to censor lawful speech in bad faith and is inconsistent with their own terms of service. To remedy this, the department's legislative proposal revises and clarifies the existing language Section 230 replaces vague terms that may be used to shield arbitrary content moderation decisions with more concrete language that gives greater guidance to platforms, users, and courts. So, look, it is, you guys know what they do. I mean, I don't need to tell you. I've been saying this forever, that this has to happen. There has to be a reform because you can't get rid of 230. Otherwise, then these monopolies that have been created at Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, that they'll just start censoring everyone. They'll just take everyone off because they'll say, I don't want to be held liable for this. And what will end up happening is we'll just get disenfranchised completely and kicked off of our digital profiles. But you have to have a rewrite and a reforming of the guidelines, because it ultimately, they're using this to censor political speech with the intent of helping their favored political outcomes. And they have these monopolies. So it's criminal on a scale that you couldn't imagine. And they hide behind armies of lawyers that they can afford that make it impossible for anyone to hold them accountable for their violation of our civil liberties. And they're going to game the system to change the outcome of elections in our country. So they could easily use their platforms to turn this country into a one-party state, right? Where there's no dissent. You just get removed. You get thrown in the memory hole, like straight out of Orwell. So if you want to read the full thing, I'll leave a link to it below. But yeah, that's what Q wanted us to look at. And then, of course, the next one here says Hillary Clinton and Foundation crime against children. Well, you know, this stuff's going to come out eventually, but it all has, listen, there's a lot to this. So from what I've heard in my sources and just information I've researched, it all ties back to Haiti. It all ties back to Venezuela, believe it or not. It ties back to the Clintons. It ties back to Epstein and the island, but it also ties to Cuba. And it's all interrelated in the sense that there was an organized effort to facilitate, in my opinion, child trafficking, guns trafficking, drug trafficking en masse, and that's what's going to end up coming out. But yeah, Q pointing us to that. So yeah, Q says, "Let the truth be told. Political spying illegal. Less than 1% have faith in humanity." Q. Yeah, I mean, again, like President Trump has said, it was the top, right? It was the Comeys, the Brennans, the Clappers. Those are the ones who were facilitating these operations. A lot of the other ones were just their minions, and they would handpick people who were in, the secret clubs or whatever, the societies or was whatever, secret fraternal organizations, whatever you would call them, and you would handpick those people to help you facilitate these crimes. But the majority of the people working in these organizations are patriots who love America. Although we know that some of these places have been infiltrated, right? Just what happens. And then the next one here, an older Q post from February of 2020 this year. Q said, bigger than you can imagine. So imagine this. If Q's saying it's more than this, it says more than selling of state secrets, more than selling of U.S. security, more than selling of military tech, more than selling of CIA assets, more than selling of NSA bulk data collection programs, more than selling of uranium, more than selling of U.S. space national security programs and positions, more than selling of U.S. aid, more than selling of special access programs, classified 1 through 99, crimes against humanity. Yeah. Think about what would be bigger than these. If you can do that, what's bigger than that? Well, let me tell you what it is. It's the planned destruction of this country from within. It's taking all of these and giving them to our enemies to devise a plan to undermine our sovereignty and implode this country in on itself, so that then a stronger power like China, which would become stronger if our country imploded on itself, they would step in, and then you'd have a global system that's run by the Chinese communists who've been bought and paid for by the globalists, right? The Rothschilds, Soros, Sauds, everyone else. That's what it is. And they do organize the crime or they do have organized trafficking rings, and it's not just some myth that we made up. We're not, QAnon on any major news story. It's always like we're conspiracy theorists, and you're like, well, what about Epstein? And like, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, what about Keith Rainier and Nexium? And what about the cartels that are smuggling children across the border? Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. We can't be that. I mean, we're really not that creative, in my opinion. We can't be, because, and I mean, a lot of you are creative. I'm not saying you're not creative, but I mean, how would you can't just say that the objective facts are conspiracy theories. I mean, you just can't do it. So it says, when you cannot destroy or defeat the United States of America by attacking head on, you change tactics and deploy a kill from within internal operation, financial economy, military police, division of citizenry, border collapse, install like-minded leaders in key positions of U.S. government. How many people removed from the FBI had Iranian family backgrounds? The silent war continues. Q. Now, look, we have to be worried about what's going to happen with this election. If Joe Biden does go and all the way through, or even makes it to the debates, who will replace him? How they will go about doing that? What's planned as far as I'm getting information from sources who I believe are reliable, telling me about the incredible crime and corruption. I mean, it all goes back to Obama, from what I hear. It's talking about the guns where he got whatever it was, 1 billion rounds of ammo for the Homeland Security that just disappeared. Basically, it's hard to trace where all that went. All the rifles and other military equipment that was procured, that's disappeared. Where is it all going? Where did it all go? Who is holding it illegally, and where are they holding it? And is it being held with the specific intent of being used against our own citizens in the event of, I don't know, let's say a state secedes, right? They war gamed it. John Podesta came out and said that they were, if Joe Biden, even if he loses, he's not going to secede, or he's not going to concede, and that they're going to want California, Oregon, and Washington to secede from the Union. Maybe, just maybe, all those weapons that Obama procured and handed out to his liberal buddies, leftist buddies, got put in certain storage areas where now they may or may not be being given out to arm the insurrection and to create more turmoil ahead of the 2020 election. It's a thought. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just saying it's something to consider. The next one here, the New York Post article, which talks about Senate report links Hunter Biden to prostitution or human trafficking ring. And of course, just like we talked about that all the way through, it says no media coverage. Why? The same people who control the media are the same people who are part of the evil and corrupt system of control, crimes against humanity. You are not meant to think for yourself. You are not meant to challenge their power, control, obey, and accept. Illusion of democracy, illusion of freedom. Why does the media push division, incite violence, pit race against race, pit religion versus religion, pit sex versus sex, pit class versus class? Divided you are weak, divided you fight each other, divided you pose no threat to their system of control. Unity is strength, unity is power, unity is humanity. Controlled media plays a major role in shaping the narratives to keep you powerless, helpless, and asleep, unaware of truth. Enemy of the people, enemy of humanity, Q. And that's what it is, because most of the reporters working at the fake news are just brainwashed as it gets, right? They love the depravity and evil that is in society, and they want power, and they want to keep their little, whatever job they have where they make, $50,000 a year writing fake news. But it's the people who run those companies, the big 6 or 5 media corporations that control most of what you watch on TV. They're the same people who control this evil and corrupt system. They're the same people, because what does Pepsi get out of promoting Black Lives Matter? Well, if you can destroy this country with the communist Marxist revolution that creates a huge rift and causes us to lose our power, then that gives more power to them globally, and that's all they care about. Because the more power they have, right? Imagine if you don't have to follow U.S. laws and regulations, and you can just buy favor with the Chinese Communist Party, and then you have access to this huge, much bigger markets. It's like they don't see the United States through the lens that we do, as Americans, as patriots, as citizens. They see it through the lens of it's an impediment to their amassing more power and becoming larger and more dominating and dominating their market, whatever it is, whether it's their verticals in whatever market they're in. Or whatever. I'm, not really an economist, but I do know that that's the general gist of why you see like Nike and all them supporting this stuff, because it's to their benefit to have a weakened America that collapses into like a global sovereign, because then they'll be. You think they can buy influence in China? I think so. So the next one here is the CBS Morning tweet. Followers of the QAnon conspiracy group could have a significant influence in the 2020 election, and they give this inside look. And it's a cool video because it features a lot of my friends, people I personally know and talk to pretty regularly, are featured in this video, which is really cool. It was at that Q Red Pill Roadshow that I went to the first one. And then the second one got canceled for C19, and then there was supposed to be another one in, I think it was Jacksonville, and I ended up not being able to make it out there for that. But I think they were there, and it was like Dustin Nemos and my buddy who runs the show, and Jeff and Shady from Matrix. And the fake news is trying to put their spin on it and say they're crazy conspiracy theorists, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's an interesting video, and Q's right on when he shares it and says everyone has a choice to make against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Q. So remember, if you have or not, we took an oath too, right? And even if you didn't take the oath, you will want to defend this country from these enemies that are foreign and domestic, and they do exist. The next one here, who wields significant influence regarding Clinton party? And it gives these 2 WikiLeaks emails. The first one, an email to Hillary Clinton from somebody named Lona Valamo, but it includes it has the reference to George Soros, who's asking for an appointment. Well, we know who Soros is controlling, right? He's controlling the Clintons, obviously, it would seem. And he's the one who's been funneling money into DA races to get the district attorneys to allow lawlessness and to promote a leftist agenda inside of government. And then it gives this other email from the WikiLeaks dump where it talked about unrest in Albania, where it talks about, of course, George Soros writing a letter to Hillary Clinton with Abedin linked in here on it. And then, of course, Q goes on to say who wields a significant influence regarding Hussein Democratic Party. Again, George Soros mentioned again here, right? Mr. Soros fully supports the president as leader of the Democratic Party. Blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, you can read through these emails if you want and get the full scoop from him. But what it is ultimately that different factions, and Q goes on to say, different factions of foreign primary control. Yes, they do. Who paid Hussein's Harvard Law degree? Oh, Prince Ali bin Talal, maybe. It says, who financed Hussein's political life? Same guys. The House of Saud, the Soros, and the Rothschilds are the ones we're looking at here. Who is Prince Ali bin Talal? Why are Hussein's school records under seal? Competing factions, each with a horse in the race, seeking direct White House control, U.S. military plus trillions overseas transfers, U.S. taxpayer funds, all working together, coordinated infiltration, not invasion. Valerie Jarrett, Uma Abedin. What happens to U.S. taxpayers' funds transferred overseas under guise of aid, military, climate, etc.? U.S. taxpayers funding the destruction of America? Q. And we were for a while there, right? So, yeah. And these are factions that are opposed, right? You have the Sauds, the House of Saud, trying to gain and wield influence in the United States. We saw what they did with the Bin Laden family after 9/11. We saw how the government had every opportunity in the world to shut down and do what President Trump did, but they didn't because they wanted the money to be funneled out so they could keep their defense contractors paid. And you see the same thing here with Soros and his undermining of America to collapse it into that global authoritarianism so that it enriches him and his friends further. Obviously these possibly trillionaire class of individuals who are involved in just the most criminal things. But yeah, the next one here is this graphic which talks about 4 families and 3 generations. So you have the Browns, the Pelosi family, Newsom, and J. Paul Getty. So this is what I talk about. Like when you talk about California, I'm out here. This is the dangerous aspect of what's happened to this state. And this is why I think that they've basically decided together as like a crime family that they are going to help facilitate the wholesale destruction of this country by helping to facilitate these clashes, I think, which may come in the future, where you're going to have civil unrest that may turn into civil conflict that could go beyond that even. And you have the Chinese who've come in and they've greased the palms of all these people. They're all the same families. A great article for this where I think that Q might have got this graphic is right here. As you look at it, it goes through all the different people, Nancy and Paul and Ron and Gavin and the Newsom, and you can scroll over to the Getty family and see how it's all connected. But think about what happened beneath the Getty Museum. We've talked about that. Tunnels that may exist in LA, tunnels from the Long Beach port into other places where, you can funnel, who knows, guns, kids, drugs, you name it. But a good article to go look at is this was here and it was put out back in 2019. So I think this is maybe where Q got the graphic from, but it talks about keeping it all in the family, and it kind of goes through how all these families have been in control of California for dating back, I don't know, almost 100 years, I guess, and what they've done to basically enrich themselves, to rewrite the laws to enrich themselves further, to keep their generational wealth very much intact, and to be able to pass it on to their kids. It's worth a read if you want to get into the weeds on it. But Q just says system of control. Q, because imagine all you'd have to do as an outside influence is compromise or get involved with these any one of these families or all of them, and you can basically control the entire future outcomes, right? And of course, over here on Twitter, Q points us to John Solomon's account being blocked by Twitter. And this is what happens when you go to John Solomon's account after Q posted his tweet. It says, "Caution, this account is temporarily restricted. You're seeing this warning because there has been some unusual activity from this account. Do you still want to view it?" And you have to click yes to get through to view it. So it's obviously what we talked about earlier about the censorship. And this is why President Trump came out with Bill Barr, and they're going to shut this down. Because look, these people are going to try to destroy this country, and they're using their systems of power and control to manipulate the masses. So just as FYI, John, so for John's information. And then finally here, the Anon puts, dopey Prince Awalid Talal wants to control our U.S. politicians with daddy's money. Can't do it when I get elected, Trump 2016. And this is back in 2015. And look, President Trump knew this. He called his shot. He knew that these families controlled it all. And it all is being confirmed by Q. It's all being denied by the fake news media, who's controlled and owned by the people that we're basically exposing. So, yeah. I mean, it is what it is, right? A few more things here. Here's the funny thing. Kevin McCarthy's come out and said that he's going to go after Pelosi if she tries her impeachment scam. All right, we'll see. Hopefully he's going to. Cindy became lobbying for the State Department position. After that didn't happen, she's now endorsing Biden. She knows what happened to her husband. She knows. Every dog has its day. Facebook censors the Gateway Pundit. Exclusive report by Joe Hoff. Police found crack pipe on George Floyd is now labeled harassment and bullying. So telling the objective truth is now harassment and bullying, according to the social media tyrants, and that about makes sense. Trump's announced a ban on woke capital working with U.S. government. Yeah, this is a great story if you want to read through it, but it just talks about how President Trump's gone after these globalists and their communist Marxist garbage that they've tried to inject into the company by going after the contracts. It's pretty interesting. Mike Bloomberg may have broken the law. This was on the Ingram angle last night, but it's worth thinking about. By paying off all those fines for those felons, was he paying for their votes? Because that's federally illegal, and in the state of Florida, that's illegal. So hopefully he'll get arrested. Here's something that happened in California I wanted to mention quickly, but they put this legislation out today a few weeks ago, it was enrolled, where basically now they've taken the power away from the sheriffs, which are the last really line of defense, especially in a place like California out here. And it's all a part of the what I think is the coming battle for power in this state, which is going to be pretty bad, guys. But we'll get into that in another show. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I'll leave links to all those articles if you want to go read them and get the details. But that's it for me. A few more things. Come here, click the subscribe button. Also, leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below, and share these videos because you know they're trying to suppress this information. They do it regularly. So help share these videos, put them out in your social media, because regardless, even if we know it's all fixed and it's all gamed against us, we have to still put the information out there as best we can. So I appreciate when you guys do that. Also, I'm on Twitter for now, I guess until they remove the Twitter, right? JustInformU, also at JIT, JustInformed Talk 1745. And of course, you can find me on Parler at JustInformed Talk. I'm on justinformednews.com, the official website for JustInformed Talk. You can go get information there, links to the Q stuff, links to different news sites, breaking news down here at the bottom, and breaking stories from the channel here as well. Also, backup channel bitchute.com/justinformedtalk. And if you want to support this channel and help create content here, you can come here and find me on Patreon at patreon.com/justinformedtalk. It's a crowdfunding website. Your monthly donation keeps this channel alive, and I'm so thankful to every one of you for that. And also, I have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation. Links to everything will be in the description below. And also, don't forget to download the Brave browser if you guys want a great product. It's an internet browser that is better than any other one I've ever used. It blocks the ads. I do the whole show that you're watching on this browser specifically because it blocks the ads. And if you haven't given it a shot yet, use the link in the description to download it, install it, and run it. Then they'll make a contribution to this channel, so it's a win-win. Go check that out today. Now, before we go, we do our segment called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today, like I said in the beginning, we're going to talk about Psalm 16, which is talking about confidence in the Lord. Now, as dark as things may appear, as grim as it may seem, there is a light, and that light is God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and our eternal salvation. Because no matter what happens on this world, we're preparing for the next world every single day. And I want to share these words with you. And it's a prayer for protection. Lord, protect me, God, for I take refuge in you. I said to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good besides you. As for the holy people who are in the land, they are the noble ones in whom is all my delight. The sorrows of those who take another god for themselves multiply. I will not pour out their drink offerings of blood. I will not speak their names with my lips. Lord, you are my portion and my cup of blessing. You hold my future. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. I will praise the Lord who counsels me even at night. My conscience instructs me. I keep the Lord in mind always, because he is at my right hand. I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my spirit rejoices. My body also rests securely. For you will not abandon me to Sheol. You will not allow your faithful one to see the pit. You reveal the path of life to me. In your presence is abundant joy. In your right hand are eternal pleasures. Amen. And I share that with you because it reminded me of what we're going through today, you know? Because it even says here, the sorrows of those who take another god for themselves multiply. And I will not pour out their drink offerings of blood, and I will not speak their names with my lips. Meaning, the evil that exists has always existed, right? They're even talking about it here. And this is a book that was written a long time ago. But we take solace in God and Jesus and our eternal salvation and the knowledge that we will be with God one day and that God is with us every day. And if you're not feeling, as close to God right now, I encourage you to say a prayer. Open your heart. That's how you start. Open your Bible. Start reading, the Gospels. Start reading Luke and Acts and try to understand what happens to a man what happened to a man who came and died for our sins, who ended up being the Son of God and gave us an eternal salvation that is immeasurably great. So, but yeah, just start with a prayer. And if you're having trouble with your family, your friends, work, whatever, just start praying. Go to your church, talk to a pastor, get involved with your community, help out, because it's like, how do we combat this evil? We do good. That's how we combat it. And we'll get to the rest when it comes. But that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit the subscribe button, hit it, punch it, tap it, reverse roundhouse, kick it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's it for me, though. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.